Hey guys, hope you all had a great weekend. Let's talk about a few stories that have been doing the rounds this week, and they all point toward one thing: the gap between what AI can do and what it should do. And if you thought this was another simple AI good, AI bad debate, stick around because the details actually matter here. Before we get into everything, if you enjoy what we do here on Ledger Live, there is a small option to support the channel. No pressure at all, it's just there for anyone who wants to help us keep going. Right, let's get into the big one first. So, first up, Rohan Paul, who is an AI engineer and entrepreneur, has been highlighting a new study from Carnegie Mellon, and it's not exactly comforting. The researchers looked at how AI agents perform when asked to write or edit code using natural language instructions. This is what they call vibe coding. You tell the AI the vibe of the fix, it does its thing, you get the output. Here is the twist: even when the agents get the job done functionally, the majority of the code is insecure. The numbers tell the story. The agents completed 61% of the task in the strongest setups. But out of those, only 10.5% passed security checks. And it gets worse. Almost 80% of the code that looked fine on the surface had vulnerabilities hiding inside it. What sort of bugs it is? Timing leaks around password handling, redirect logic that attackers could bend to manipulate headers. Basic things that should not slip through the cracks, yet here they are, generated confidently by AI. And giving the agent guidance didn't solve it either. Tell it exactly what weakness to avoid, and the output still arrived carrying problems. Then Dominic Williams, the founder of the Internet Computer Protocol, responded to this post. Dom pointed out something a lot of developers already know but rarely acknowledge publicly, that is, insecure output isn't an AI only issue. Traditional tech stacks produce insecure software all the time. The difference is that AI can produce it faster. Dom's angle is that ICP's tamper-proof infrastructure removes many of the attack vectors that plague Web2 systems. But, and this part matters, it doesn't fix logical errors. If the AI writes code that upgrades your blog and accidentally opens admin access to every visitor, no amount of tamper-proofing saves you from that mistake. That still requires human eyes. Dom also spoke about Caffeine AI, the self writing app builder running on ICP. The system uses a group of models, each with specific roles, and they are still refining them to improve accuracy. He also mentioned that security gets better when data definitions clearly define access controls for every function. That way, the AI isn't guessing who gets to do what. Pierre Samaties, Definity's chief business officer, added something important here. He said the core problem is in the AI itself, but the Web2 infrastructure where most software runs. And that's a fair point. If the environment is fragile, the code running inside it inherits that fragility. Pierre's argument is that Caffeine AI deploys apps into tamper-proof canisters on ICP, removing entire categories of vulnerabilities straight away. His line that stuck with everyone was, the fix isn't better prompts, it's a safer execution environment. The broader discussion turned toward whether non technical creators can safely build apps through AI. Dom highlighted that ICP is the only blockchain where AI models can run directly on chain, execute logic, and store data without relying on off chain workarounds. Large language models still need some off chain processing, but Caffeine uses a hybrid setup that keeps anything sensitive inside ICP's secure environment. And finally, Dom also addressed the idea of what counts as an app these days. It's not just banking systems or heavy enterprise software. Modern apps can be websites, social feeds, games, tools, or SaaS products that install onto phones or desktops. The point he makes is that we are heading into a world where someone with a rough idea can ship a usable, resilient tool as long as the infrastructure backing it can be trusted. Vibe coding's risks are not going away anytime soon, but the conversation around it is pushing the industry towards safer foundations rather than quick fixes. Next up is SecureVault, which has been gaining traction because it offers a fresh take on something people rarely think about until it's too late, that is, storing and passing on sensitive documents. SecureVault lets you encrypt files, set deadlines, and nominate beneficiaries all through internet identity. That part is straightforward enough, but what separates it from a regular cloud vault is where the rules are enforced. Instead of relying on a company's servers to manage when and how someone gains access, Secure Vaults pushes all that logic down to the Internet Computer Protocol. Supporters see this as a big difference. Cloud storage can hide your files effectively, but it cannot promise that access rules will always be followed perfectly. Server based checks can be misconfigured, manipulated, or overwritten. When those rules are encoded at the protocol layer, there is far less room for things to go wrong. The project's team has been emphasizing that traditional cloud systems treat timing and identity as operational issues, not protocol issues. That leaves room for error. Secure Vault tries to close that gap by moving the core instructions to a tamper resistant environment. Critics of decentralized apps often bring up the user experience barrier, and that criticism is fair. Most people don't want a blockchain tutorial before using a product. Caffeine AI's response is to make interfaces feel familiar and keep the tech talk in the background. Secure Vault seems to follow that philosophy closely. Builders involved in the project have said the aim is to make it feel like a normal document vault, not a crypto product dressed up as one. People watching the Internet Computer have been pointing out that this is the sort of use case the protocol handles well. It's not just storing hashes, it's running actual logic. But others argue that none of this matters unless mainstream users feel comfortable enough to try it. So both perspectives sit side by side, a strong technical foundation on one hand and the reality of user onboarding on the other. Whether Secure Vault becomes widely used is still uncertain, but it does show that builders are experimenting with practical ideas rather than hypothetical ones. It blends long term planning with digital resilience in a way that feels grounded rather than flashy. Now let's talk about something that's helping Caffeine AI's momentum pick up speed. Workshops that give non-coders a chance to build for the first time. One of the latest updates came from AmpSpeed, who hosted a session with around 25 people from the construction sector. Most of them had never touched creative tech. Some had never opened any sort of building tool before. Yet by the end of the workshop, several had working applications. One person created a simple website for managing Airbnb bookings. Another produced a portfolio site with multiple pages and clean navigation. And these weren't high pressure hacks. The atmosphere was more like a friendly brainstorm session where people helped each other figure things out. The Caffeine AI team has been championing this idea for a while. Building shouldn't feel exclusive. Workshops like this show what that looks like in real life. People start with a loose idea, feed prompts into the system, fix errors along the way, and suddenly they are clicking through something they have made. AmpSpeed structure helped the group stay on track. They encouraged participants to keep things simple and focus on features they could understand fully. That approach made the experience feel manageable, and for many beginners, feeling less overwhelmed is half the battle. Observers said these workshops are quietly shifting perceptions. People who never pictured themselves as tech creators are walking away with working tools. Nothing too complex, but enough to make them rethink what's possible. More sessions are planned, and as this spreads, the mix of newcomers trying Caffeine AI is only going to widen. It's not about hype, it's about letting people discover at their own pace that software building can be part of their toolkit. Let's move to the next conversation that's been heating up, that is Fabio's response to the ongoing chatter around ICP's tokenomics. Instead of a blanket defense, he brought figures that paint a fuller picture. He pointed to year on year revenue rising by almost 88%, expenses dropping nearly 69%, earnings improving even though the project still sits at a loss of around $112 million. dollars. Now, a loss is still a loss, no sugarcoating that, but the comparisons he included matter. Ethereum's revenue is down sharply with losses of around $2.4 billion. dollars. Solana is posting its largest loss since launch, more than 4 billion, along with higher expenses. Fabio's view is that ICP's financial direction is trending the right way even if the end goal isn't here yet. He also highlighted Caffeine AI as a new revenue source expected to arrive next year. Dom's outlook on lower inflation also featured in the discussion. Dom predicts a 70% reduction, but Fabio says that even a 20 to 30% drop would represent better stability than previous years. His own calculation places year on year inflation at just under 3%. Of course, critics will point out that none of this resolves everything. Tokenomics debates never settle on one post, but Fabio's message is that the numbers deserve context rather than panic. It's a reminder that ecosystems shouldn't be judged solely on snapshots. Trends matter, and for ICP, the trend appears to be improving even if the journey is still unfolding. Finally, let's look at Coinbase, which has reopened its app for registrations in India after more than 2 years. At the moment, users can trade crypto to crypto. But Coinbase APAC Director John O'Loughlin said during India Blockchain Week that a fiat on ramp is coming in 2026. That means Indian users will eventually be able to load funds directly and buy crypto without jumping through hoops. To rewind for a moment, Coinbase launched in India in 2022 but ran into trouble fast when the NPCI distanced itself from the exchange. By 2023, Coinbase had shut down access entirely and asked users to move off the platform. O'Loughlin described the decision as painful from a business perspective but necessary. The company wanted a clean slate and began engagement with India's Financial Intelligence Unit. After registering with the FIU and opening early access onboarding in October, the app is now live again. India is a huge market, but regulations and high taxes have slowed crypto adoption. Income from crypto is taxed at 30% with no loss offsets, and every transaction carries a 1% deduction. That alone pushes people away from frequent trading. All Olin is hoping policies soften with time. Coinbase is still invested in the country though. Its venture arm recently backed CoinDCX at a $2.45 billion valuation. And Coinbase plans to grow its Indian team beyond 500 employees. The reopening signals a more cautious, compliant re entry, one that sees India as a long term strategic market rather than a short term sprint. That wraps up this edition of Ledger Life. If you have been watching the pace of change across AI, crypto, and the builders shaping both worlds, it's clear we are moving into a stretch where everyday experimentation sits right next to big picture infrastructure debates. Whether it's vibe coding and the push for safer software, tools like SecureVault rethinking personal security, workshops showing that newcomers can build without feeling out of place, or the ongoing talk around ICP's economics, all of it adds to a wider shift in how people interact with tech. If you found this breakdown useful, feel free to share it with someone who keeps an eye on these stories. And if you are exploring any of these projects, check the link in the description. Thanks for watching Ledger Life. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one.